unhoused families, any unhoused youth, as well as other information, including the meal distribution site map. Finally, if you have any questions or you are wanting to reach out to any particular charter school and having any difficulty whatsoever, please call us and leave a message at 314-776-3551, and we will definitely get back in touch with you and help to answer your question in any other way that you need assistance possible. So again, thank you very much.
Good morning. I'm Dr. Terry Harris, Rockwood School District Executive Director of Student Services. And basically what Doug mentioned and Dr. Adams, we're doing the same thing in Rockwood School District, but just recently I worked with a group of pretty much every school district administrator in the St. Louis region. And so I was thinking about this concept of this quote from James Baldwin, which says, "For these are all of our children, we are profit by or pay for whatever they become." And so understanding that there are kids who live in the city of St. Louis, but maybe parents work in a different area. And so these kids are going to be very transient. So what we wanted to do is make sure that every single student between the age of 0 and 18 in the city of St. Louis, in the St. Louis region, they can go to any site and receive food without questions asked. And so I organized a group of administrators and school leaders and funders, and my alderwoman, Shameen, was on there. And we have a site that I will share in the group later, but basically we have over 150 sites where kids can go anywhere and find food. So we're good there. But here's a second question that we have to ask ourselves. The second question is, what are schools for in this day and age? And schools are more than just the academic pieces. I'm happy that we're doing all the things that we are doing with food. Again, over 150 sites, and that number is going to continue to grow where kids and families can receive food. But the second question is, what are schools for, and what are we doing to meet the other needs? And so the next phase that I'm looking to coordinate and try to organize is, how can we offer mental health services for students who receive those supports at school, and now that schools are closed, are no longer going to receive those supports. And so what we're trying to do is figure out if we can get social workers and counselors to come on some type of line that if any kid in the St. Louis region call this number, then they will be able to offer some immediate support for those students who may be struggling. Obviously, we're asking all the social workers and counselors who are currently working with students or who worked with students in the past to continue to check in on students and call to make sure they're okay. This is a really tough time for students. Schools represents consistency, a feeling of home, and quite frankly, love for kids. And so we just need to make sure that that's continuing. Our site is called All Our Children because these are all of our kids in the city of St. Louis. We're doing a good job in terms of feeding. I'm happy about that. Like I said, the next phase is figuring out a way that we can continue to meet the mental health and well-being of our students virtually. So I will share our site later, and if there's anyone on this call that can help me organize that, I would definitely appreciate it. I also want to say, just quickly, thank you big time to Dr. Kelvin Adams for his leadership in terms of making sure that any kid in the city of St. Louis can eat. He was the first superintendent to get on board with this without any questions. And I think because of his leadership, everyone else basically just kind of fell in line. So I really appreciate you. I want to publicly say that. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. This is Robert Percelli. I'm the Executive Director of Jean Slay's Girls and Boys Club. I want to thank Kara, Bridget, and Starsky for making this happen. As a neighborhood-based organization serving 680 kids per year, I appreciate the invitation here. So I thought I'd go through just a little bit of the decision-making to eventually close the club. Last week, we created our protocols in conjunction with direction from the city, the CDC, and Dr. John Peter. Dr. Peter is on our board of directors. He is over emergency room services at Cardinal Glennon, and he's a pediatric professor at the SLU Medical School. The protocols were working through the end of day Friday. Sunday morning, the 15th, I met with our executive committee, and we made the difficult decision to close the club starting Monday because we couldn't guarantee the city required social distancing. Dr. Peter agreed with that decision. On Monday, I had an all-staff meeting maintaining social distance with all of the staff, and went through reasons why we decided to close the club. Ultimately, I challenged the staff to come up with a new way to deliver programs for the more than 680 children we serve every year. And they took it and they made it work, and they're making it work. On Wednesday, just this past Wednesday, in partnership with Will from the mayor's office and Dr. Adams and SLPS, we are one of the food distribution sites. We started serving Wednesday. We are serving breakfast and lunch, grab and go from 8 a.m. until noon. And so not only to our members, our club members, but also any child in the city of St. Louis under the age of 18. In 3 days, our amazing staff put together a program that they are rolling out today on web-based learning. So we're using the club's Facebook page, and the program is called Dig It All. It will include learning activities and recreation activities. The third component that we have put into place, and that is rolling out today as well, are phone calls. We are creating, we have a structured phone calls that will be taking place 2 to 3 times per week. We do have the luxury of a clinical team, thanks to the City of St. Louis Mental Health Board. We have 2 LCSWs on staff, so they have taken that and are coordinating that with other program staff. So we will be calling all of our families, all of our children, and all of our families 2 to 3 times per week. We are open. The club is open. I confirmed this with the board of directors. We are open to suggestions on how our building can be used to serve children while the safety standards are met. So I'm looking forward to questions and suggestions of how we can serve children during this time, children in the city of St. Louis. Our website is www.gsgbcstl.org. So that stands for Jeans, Sleighs, Girls, Boys Club St. Louis, GSGBCSTL. Our main phone number at the club is being monitored, we're picking up voicemails twice a day. So if you want to leave a message on our main number, which is 314-772-5661. Thank you.
We appreciate all our speakers for the sharing that you've done, for the things that you have provided. We also, recognizing, have been responsive to, in several ways, some of the technical difficulties we've been having with folks who have been not able to get through on Zoom or on our Facebook coming down in and out. So just wanted to let people know that we now have, and I'm going to invite, if accessible, I've got Deacon and staff on the line. David, if you have the ability to come on to tell people where we can link to before we get into the question and answer portion, that may be something that people can go live. We are live on YouTube. I just want to make sure we share the access point to people broadly and encourage both our speakers. The speakers can see it in our internal panel chat. If you have the ability to share that out to others, that YouTube link, we encourage you to do that. We are streaming live right now, and we have the ability to have people to engage in the question and answer still. I would encourage people that we can still take those on Facebook. People can post those questions and or email them if you are on the Zoom and those who got in on the Zoom. So that said, I want to just pause for a second to see, David, can we come on and be able to communicate verbally how people can access the YouTube and share with others?
Yes. So thank you. So thank you for everyone's patience. We are currently live on the Deaconess Foundation's YouTube page, and are currently live, as well as recording this the full audio and visual of the record of the webinar. So please search within YouTube for Deaconess Foundation, and it will give you the live link for this discussion. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, David. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Joy, all of whom are kind of working behind the scenes to make this magic happen. And I know that we have several questions. I want to appreciate my colleague, Bridget Flood. Bridget has been diligent on the Zoom, and some of the questions that have come up have already been answered. Some about technical realities, some about the recording of the forum. So thank you very much, Bridget, for keeping your fingers busy replying to questions already. And I encourage, as we got several questions here that I've seen pop up. I want to prepare. I see Dr. Adams is still on the line. Some questions that I think may apply as well for you, Doug, as we think about, although the answers may be different. We have several questions about teachers' expectations and resources there. So I'm gonna kind of stack 3 questions related to teachers and invite Dr. Adams, Dr. Thaman, Dr. Harris, perhaps, to weigh in here. First question, will teachers be expected to come to the school buildings? Is part of that. When will teachers receive more communication and clarity from the districts? And then finally, when and how can teachers get the resources being sent to students and dispersed at schools? So expectations about teachers being present, expectations about communication with teachers, and expectations about teachers having access to some of the resources that are being shared with students. And I will note those are coming from 3 different people, but all with some concern about teachers. So we'll perhaps open up for Dr. Adams, then Dr. Thaman, then Dr. Harris.
First of all, thank you again. The questions are really good questions. First and foremost, our teaching staff and our non-certs, our persons who are not certified are being paid for the next 2 weeks, but they are not required to come to the school building. Obviously, the notion of social distancing is important, and we don't want anybody to be infected by the virus by being in close proximity. So no one is required to come to work over the next 2-week period of time. Our principals will be monitoring the sites, but our teachers and our non-certs will not. That's number 1. Number 2, the lessons that are being provided by the St. Louis Public School District are all online. Hard copies are going to be picked up at sites, as Mr. Thaman said, for charter schools. The district schools are doing the same thing. And staff will be able to go in and to look at what's being provided. Our curriculum team has worked over the last week to provide those documents, and they're going to be available because we were on spring break this week, so we did not want to engage students in any kind of academic work this week, but obviously next week they will. I think those are the 2 main questions. In terms of when we will know more, obviously this is an ever-evolving piece. It is our intent, superintendents in the county, and I think charters as well, will be making some assessment of where we are in the next week or so. I think we have a meeting scheduled for March the 30th. Superintendents in the county and the city, and I think the charter schools as well, to kind of talk about what the next steps might be. But I think it's premature right now to talk about anything other than that. We did get notice from the State Department of Education on yesterday that all state assessments have been canceled for this year. So there will not be any student in grades 3 through 12 who will be required to take state assessments in the state of Missouri. They're requesting a waiver from the federal government, but irrespective of that waiver, the commissioner said that she would not put that as a requirement moving forward for this particular school year. So I think that covers the 3 questions that were asked relative to teachers.
Thank you. I'm going to try and not echo repeat a lot of what Dr. Adams has just said. As far as the charter schools, the answer is the same. Everybody is still being paid over this period of time. The Department of Education has really been responsive to our public schools and have done a fantastic job. And they have indicated that the continuation of funding will be seamless, which is terrific. So we can ensure that our teachers are continuing to be paid. They are not required to be on site at this time. Lessons, again, will vary based on charter school between packets and online resources. And you should be hearing from every school. We had some charter schools on spring break this week. They'll be replying to you towards the end of the week or over the weekend. And then other schools will be in touch with you at the beginning of next week. We will be, as St. Louis Public is doing, reassessing this situation as we move towards the end of March. As far as questions around equipment, we do know that even with connectivity, we do have a lot of families that maybe equipment is going to be an issue. We have been reaching out to members of the philanthropic community and are hopeful that we are able to identify some ways to quickly provide equipment to families who are needing those resources. And we will continue to update as we know that as well. So I think that answers all of those questions along with what Dr. Adams has said. Thank you.
And I would just add, echo pretty much everything that the others said. Rockwood School District is doing the same. But I also want to just take a quick second to discuss the inequity issues that this virus has exposed. And so I work in a district where we have one-to-one from preschool all the way up to 12th grade. And so all of our kids have access to a Chromebook. But I also know that there are districts that don't have access. So when we're talking about online learning, we have to be very clear that not everyone has access to the Chromebook to do the online learning, even though charter is providing free hotspots or internet. If you don't have the equipment to access the internet, then it's pointless. And so I think that we want to be very careful about that. In terms of paying teachers and all these things, we're doing that. We have all the online things. But I think the larger question for teachers is, as we're worried about our students, and rightfully so, I think that as leaders, we need to be very cognizant that our teachers are stressed and they are lost as well. And so some of these questions that the teachers are having are things that we probably need to collectively do a better job of in terms of communicating. We need to provide information to teachers to let them know that in this time, you can take a breath. You can pause. We know that you care about your kids. We know that you love your kids. We're trying to figure all these things out. And what we don't want to have happen is for our teachers to, just have a level of stress and anxiety because of this situation. We're going to work together. We're going to support our kids and we're going to support our teachers as well. And I think we need to be very clear and loud about that. Also, someone mentioned on the question something about homeless students, and I didn't get a chance to talk about that. What we're doing in my school district, and I assure that all school districts are doing this, we have identified the homeless students in our school districts, and we are having our social workers and counselors to follow up with those individuals on a weekly basis. We're also providing backpacks, similar to what Dr. Adams mentioned earlier. We're providing backpacks for families to be able to have food for an entire week or entire 2 weeks during this time off. So we know who those students are. We have to know who those students are by law. And so it's going to be a little bit easier for us to try to stay in contact with those kids and be able to support them. So homeless students, all the school districts that I've worked with and talked with, homeless students are definitely on our mind, and we are working with those families to do the best we can do to support them. And I feel very confident knowing that every school district around is doing the same thing.
Thank you all for that. It's great to hear that everyone's working together. It looks like there's an aligned strategy across districts, across school type, at least across the public school types, the system related and the charters as well. We have a number of questions, and I appreciate you all answering the questions around technology. As far as access, there are a couple of other questions related to that, but I wanted to kind of add two other themes that are coming up specifically. They are around transportation. So we talked about the drop-off sites. I know that the significant number of sites is to provide additional access points. We have questions about additional support in getting to sites, whether there will be a transportation plan put in place. The other thing that we have questions about is students with mental health challenges or IEPs, individualized education plans, and whether there will be additional supports to students with additional supports and or considerations for students with these identified mental health challenges or individualized education plans. Would any of our educational leaders like to address those? And I'll also kind of hold out there to Judge Omer as relates to mental health supports. There may be something we should address from the courts as well, and the young people under supervision. There may be something to say there from the family court perspective. Doug?
Starsky, I can address the IEP situation. It is a federal requirement that even, and a civil rights requirement, that during this time, any student that has an identified disability is still to receive the services that they are entitled to. And so each school is working with those families in that regard. Again, if you've not heard from your school yet, we encourage you to reach out to them or to reach out to us so that we can help to make that connection. There are questions around the ability to provide compensatory services once we have moved past this time. And so each school is also weighing that in if there are services that cannot be provided through remote learning or in a different way. So it is absolutely an essential element to ensure that all these students are being identified regardless of their abilities or any identified disabilities, and that's being taken care of.
Thank you. Any other educators or Judge Omer around this issue of IEPs and mental health supports? I do.
As far as IEPs, I mean, we rely on the schools to help us. So we have to our team that's in place in terms of dealing with the kids in care and protection cases. We have a team approach, and we obviously have to use many third parties to provide these services. So the team works closely with the schools and with mental health folks. We have the kids that are in detention. I have 2 kids right now who the Department of Mental Health has been involved with, who have some serious charges, but they are getting treatment in-house. And we also have started a treatment court here in juvenile as of the first of the year for families, and that is ongoing and will be ongoing. And it addresses not only drug issues, but also mental health issues that are involved with a family. For an example, a drug exposed baby at birth that we bring into care. We immediately are addressing the drug issues for the parents by getting them into our treatment court and going from there, as well as ensuring that the child that has been is being taken care of. So we have certain in-house mechanisms, but also it's a combination with the outside supports. And our team been very successful in organizing those services for the children and the family. Obviously in this time, there's always a great demand, and so sometimes you're on a waiting list, and we understand that, but we at least we're there, and that's why we don't want to just shut down, because then everything, because if you got to get on the waiting list, well, let's get on there rather than wait a month to get on the list. We'll be that much further behind, because as this goes on, it's not going to get any better. So we're trying to address all those issues, whether a combination of in-house or outside, to continue for all the kids. But the ones that are in detention, we're able to certainly address immediately. And luckily, there's only a couple that are real serious issues on that front.
Got it. Thank you. I know Dr. Maureen Clancy May, there's some work that DESE's doing around both IEPs and another question that we got through the chat around summer school changes and requirements. Would you share a little bit about what's happening there?
Yes. The department is paying close attention to all things related to school calendars, and as questions have been posed to the department, we will provide guidance on summer school and how we roll into the next school year. So that is going to certainly be an area that the commissioner and others will want to discuss throughout the state. We recognize it is a local decision, all things related to school calendar, but anything that we can do to help support the schools in their decisions, we will do that. In terms of special education, again, on the DESE website, you will see that there is a whole section related to special education. As long as the schools are providing educational opportunities for their students, then going back to Dr. Harris's comment about equity, free appropriate public education has to be provided to students with disabilities. So schools would be advised to look at the IEPs of students in their schools to determine what services, how they can be appropriated, and what related services may or may not be able to be offered during this time. And IEPs are always free to reconvene to determine, any changes that need to be made. But there's much more information. Extended school year, for a lot of students with IEPs, it's a matter of providing support help in terms of minutes per day by a specialized credentialed teacher. Those students could be accommodated, for example, during an extended school year opportunity, should that summer school situation work itself out in any given school. So again, guidance in great detail is offered on the DESE website, but I know those are some of the key questions that have been asked.
Great, thank you. I know Alderwoman Shameen Clark Hubbard had a question while we're in this education space as well. She's putting on her mom hat of SLPS student, perhaps.
I absolutely am. And I first want to apologize. I know I've been moving a lot, but in the effort to fill in the gap, I actually right now I'm up here trying to give out breakfasts and lunches to children and families in the community in the 26th ward. So I've been running back and forth, moving a lot rather, and I want to apologize for that. My question, and I also want to acknowledge that my colleague, Alderwoman Pam Boyd from the 27th ward stopped by not just to support the meal giveaway, but to also jump in and engage in the call. And I guess she doesn't want to show her face.
Hi, Pam.
Hello, how are you?
Doing well, thank you.
My question as a parent is on a scale is asking, and I don't know if it can be answered now, but in regards to the credit for the schooling that we will, as parents, will be attempting to do at home to stand in the gap. What will the credit process look like for that? Will it count, not count? What about the makeup time? Does this time count like when we have to make up snow days and things of that nature? So those are the two questions I have as a parent. As a piggyback on Dr. Harris's comment about the equity piece, I want to note that I know it was brought up about the charter giving out free access. Well, I've gotten calls that if you owe on a bill, that you are not open, you will not be able to get that free connection, the free resources. We want to make sure when we're moving forward equitably that we don't dig bigger holes for people in our community. So if they already have a bill, again, they are not eligible to receive that free access. But what they don't know is that maybe we can assist them in making their phones, which everyone have, a hotspot, give them resources for that. I know there's different ways we can look at that, but again, and moving forward, especially when we're dealing with such a diversity in our communities, we don't want to make this hole bigger for when we come out of it, which Dr. Adams said we're going to come out on a bigger and better side. We don't want to dig small holes in moving forward. So those are the two things I wanted to add. Thank you.
And I see Dr. Adams has said he has an answer for that. And I saw Dr. Thaman reacting, especially to the charter piece. So I'm going to give both of them an opportunity to jump in.
So first, the notion of the work is considered enrichment for this 2-week period of time. And so while we want the students to do the work, it's considered enrichment work, and we're not necessarily quote unquote grading it. as strictly as we would work that would not be considered enrichment. That's number one. In terms of credit, obviously this is a 2-week period of time. There were approximately 9 weeks of school remaining. After spring break, there will be 7 weeks remaining if we're able to go back. If things change and this has to be extended and no decision has been made regarding that, we have a plan to provide, at this point in time, every student with an iPad and also the internet accessibility to get on that iPad if it extends past this 2-week period of time. And so that addresses Dr. Harris's question around the equity issue, because it is an equity issue that some students would have technology and some students would not have technology. But it would be our intent to provide an iPad as well as the technology, the internet access so that a student can complete the work. A lot depends upon the flexibility of what's happening on a regular basis. As you know, the social distancing piece requires us to be very, very careful, and the cases continue to increase. I think they're up to 47 as of today. And so we are taking all of those things in consideration. In terms of making up days, at this point in time, the 2 weeks, if we're out for 2 weeks, we would not have to make up days. We have enough days and hours built in that those two weeks would not have to be made up. And the state, from my understanding, and Mrs. Dr. Lorraine Clancy-Maker addressed this, is not requiring districts at this point in time to make up, but we have enough time built into our calendar that these 10 days out will not have to be made up as of today. If it extends past that time and the state requires something around to make up, then obviously there's a number of ways that this can be addressed to try to make sure that there's minimal makeup time, if any at all.
Dr. Thaman, maybe something on that charter piece?
Yeah, I echo everything Dr. Adams said, so I don't want to repeat any of that. That applies for the charter schools as well. Alderwoman, you're right. That charter has indicated that is one reason they will not provide that free internet access is if somebody does owe on a past bill. We have encouraging families that if that is the case to either let us know or let their school know, and we'll figure out somehow we'll figure it out, whether it's through a hotspot or we've also been looking at different ways around the country. They're trying to address this with some put hotspots on buses and put them in the areas, but we'll figure out a way to make sure people have that access.
Great. So we're getting a number of questions in a broad area. And there's a connecting piece around resources. We have a really active participant named Amanda on the line who wanted to know where SLPS is getting the resources for these devices, or what resources is SLPS using to get these devices, and how can other districts in the county use these? I think I know part of that answer, but I want to bundle this because we have someone else who's asked the question about, maybe this is for me and you, Bridget. They said, thank you for this call, but are there going to be some emergency grants for capacity building to support organizations to respond? And then someone else is asking whether mental health professionals can volunteer their support to help out. So this broad area of philanthropy, charitable support, how people can get engaged. So wanted to see if we can talk a little bit about that. I know, I'll share this. So Bridget and I were on the call earlier this week. We know that there are colleagues of ours in the philanthropic sector who are literally meeting right now, working together on a collaborative fund that will be rooted and based at the St. Louis Community Foundation on emergency response. And part of what they're talking about today is, and this I hope will be helpful input into that conversation, is they're talking about what the funding approach will be related to those funds. I also understand SLPS Foundation has set up a platform so folks can give to support emergency support for students, and the Regional Health Commission is looking at doing something in a similar fashion. All that being said, I do want to give an opportunity to ask Dr. Adams, maybe Dr. Maureen Clancy-May, about whether there are state resources that are able to be reallocated to provide this kind of supportive access. Is that what SLPS is using? Because if so, then other districts may be able to do the same. And or are there specific charitable supports that people can engage in and ways that people can either roll up their sleeves or get out their checkbooks to be helpful specifically to young people who are related to our respective districts.
Hello. So,
Yes.
Thank you for the question again. We already have access to approximately 12,000 iPads. Prior to this event occurring, we ordered an additional 8,000 iPads. We were looking down the road, thinking about what would occur. We expect delivery of those iPads this week or early next week. We have allocated resources that are internal resources, obviously, to meet this great need. As I said before, this is a flexible, ever-changing situation, and so we are mindful of that and the need to provide resources to students who don't have, quote unquote, the ability to get online. We were looking at this as a possibility anyway for next year to try to provide all of our high school students with access to technology. And so we were deep in the conversation with some external vendors to kind of do that. And so we were looking at internal dollars, quite frankly. Obviously, any philanthropic dollars that come from the foundation can and would be leveraged with the permission of the foundation to use those dollars to create some opportunities or great opportunities for students. I think the real challenge here is knowing that we only have 2 weeks and making all of these kinds of changes based on 2 weeks as opposed to, as Kansas, the state of Kansas is done closing schools for the rest of the year. If some decision is made to extend this beyond 2 weeks, then I think what you will see from St. Louis Public Schools, and I would suspect from all of our partners, charters and otherwise, that they would ramp this up in terms of greater access to kids and find the dollars either internally or externally, as Mr. Damon has said, with outside partners to support this effort. So I think the need, at least what will happen moving forward, will drive to a great degree what we will be doing and how aggressively we will be pursuing all of these other options that the writer asked about.
Great. Anything else on that from Desi, Dr. Clancy May, or the particular resources that school districts or parents should know about that can be accessed by districts, certain categories of funds that they could be looking at for helpful emergency or sustainability response?
At the present time, I'm not aware, but I will bring this to the department's attention today. And I'm sure that it's been a constant conversation. The Office of College and Career Readiness will provide a list of resources that'll be pushed out to all the schools in the state. But in terms of funding to support and to create hotspot opportunities and the technology, I will certainly bring that to the department to see what activity, if any, is being addressed at this time.
Great. Good deal. Bridget, I want to give people a break from my voice on this philanthropic question. Would you characterize, Bridget hosted a great call earlier this week with local partners, particularly health funders. Would you kind of characterize for folks part of what's going on in the philanthropic sector as far as response here? You know, we're all trying to figure it out as well right now, but you kind of convened us for people to share some of those pieces. So would you share a little bit of that?
I will, and I apologize in advance if my dog starts to bark because I'm at home. I would say from an Incarnate Word, I'll start with myself. From an Incarnate Word Foundation perspective, we are assessing what the best thing to do would be. We're very concerned about the youth serving agencies. How are those agencies going to meet the needs of kids when they can't have them in one place in a large number? We're very concerned about the healthcare system and just meeting people's healthcare needs, although typically that isn't what we fund. So we're kind of assessing what needs to happen right now. That's why this call was so important to me, to be present and to hear what everyone has to say. I know that some of the foundations are looking at shifting their grants from program-specific grants to operations. Our foundation already does operational grants, so that would not be a shift for us. They're also talking about extending deadlines for reports and things like that. I'm not very big on reports, so that doesn't really work either for me. So right now, I would say we are assessing what to do. I have a call with my finance committee at the end of the month to talk, so that's next week, to talk about how we're going to allocate funds for this year. Are we going to try and speed up our grant making? Short circuit the process, because typically our process doesn't fund until December, and people may need things now. So that's what I'm personally looking at is there a way to short circuit my process and get money out the door sooner rather than later? Because I think the need is going to be pretty intense in the next couple of months. And so that's where we are. I think that most of the funders on the call, and Starsky, if you see it differently, please say so, struck me as being in the same place, is really trying to figure out what is the best way to deploy resources at this point in time. So that's kind of where we are. We're still in the listening mode.
I think that's absolutely accurate. I'll kind of do the same and say, from Deaconess Foundation perspective, one of the questions came up about capacity building dollars. We have a set of 13 organizations that are kind of our core. We did this week move some flexible funding to those organizations to the tune of about 6 figures, but not, so average grant a little under $10,000, mostly just to help them figure stuff out. So some of this is about work from home stuff. Some of it's about smaller organizations trying to figure out how to support people from a health standpoint. So that was our immediate thing, is we moved some capacity building dollars to our core organizations. We have also begun, and one of our team members is looking at other responses. So we're monitoring what our colleagues are doing in the St. Louis Community Foundation kind of collaborative response, and want to be supportive of that as is appropriate for us. And we're looking at other ways we can dig deeper with our core partners. We tend to fund policy and advocacy, which is a unique space. So we're doing that as well. But I think all the things that Bridget characterized are the keys for the key kind of watchwords for philanthropy broadly. I see that Alderwoman Spencer has a question, so we want to open up for her to answer a question now, to ask a question at this time.
Let's see. Okay, there you go. My question is about school budgets. If we do prolong this break, to Alderwoman Clark Hubbard's point about making up school days, if we have to do that and extend the school year for our teachers and pay them for that, where will additional funding come from? And is the state moving to, call in an emergency situation, a closure of schools that would allow them to pick up the tabs, or our local school districts having to foot the bill? And how do we advocate for our state coming to the table to help us with that?
So is that directed more toward Desi?
Hi, this is Maureen. First of all, according to the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, schools will not have to make up days missed due to this COVID-19 virus. So we will not have to make up days. There will be a very simple online process for schools just to enter their data or enter their request to have days of forgiveness is the language we use. And that will be a very simple process that'll be put out to all the schools. They just click in their school district, their charter school name, and submit the days that they've been out. All will be forgiven. There'll be no requirement to make up those days. Funding will not be affected. Schools' current funding is based on preceding years. So funding payments for this year are already in play and good to go. For the next year's payment based on this current year calendar, it will resort back to a preceding year where there is obviously not having a COVID virus get in the way of funding. So funding will not be affected. Calendar days do not have to be made up. We will just move forward with supporting schools on however they can provide educational opportunities for children now. And then we will look forward to whatever calendar conversation we need to have regarding summer school and the start of next school year.
Great, thank you. I want to pull some of the comments that we're getting on both Facebook and on Zoom. But but it looks like Alderwoman Spencer has a quick follow-up. So let's go back to her.
Thanks, Reverend Wilson. Just a quick follow-up on that. My concern with that, and I can appreciate that, would be that students that are struggling and may not have access to the online tools at home, their families may not have access to those things. The school districts that have many of those students would be struggling more to make up for time lost. And I'd like to make sure as we move forward that we are mindful that many of our kids are not going to be able to participate in the high quality of online, at home learning that other kids could. And this could create a larger gap in inequities and learning in a general sense throughout our state.
Yeah. Great, thank you. So part of what folks online are saying is, looking at Nick, who's brought up a comment from one of the viewers on Facebook Live, that this is a great time to look at what quality looks like across the state as relates to education. How do we ensure, to Dr. Harris's point, how do we ensure children are given the same access to education regardless of their zip code? Says in crisis, we can fix a lot on purpose. I am reminded there, just echoing one of my team members, actually David, who's making a lot of this stuff happen. But I think it may apply to some of our public policy stuff as well. Some of the questions that we're getting, I want to shift over here to Judge Omer from education a little bit. There was a group of about 25 organizations that have signed on to a petition. Now over 1,500 citizens have signed on to the petition, and they address some of the matters related to the courts, related to young people there, and you talked about related to policing and enforcement, but you also talked about an order that you're under from Judge Burleson, which we may have missed. I don't want people who are tuning in now to have missed that piece. But some of the calls there were things like suspending in-person operations of the circuit court, ceasing issuing warrants, abating collection of outstanding fines and costs, canceling probation, parole, and pretrial meetings, or extending unlimited paid sick leave to court employees. Can you talk about some of the adjustments the courts have made, perhaps in response to some of these calls that you may have received as well?
Well, basically, the court has suspended most of those activities. There's some discussion going on right now about warrants and how to proceed with that, and I expect another administrative order in that regard. But I think what's really happening is just essential court functions are what is happening. So cases are generally being continued unless there's some urgency that a case needs to be heard, and to minimize any exposure here whatsoever. So and I think warrants will be the same way. There's warrants that are out there, but once a warrant is activated and a person is brought into custody, then there's very proactive efforts in order to get that individual out, if you will, depending on the circumstances. So in that regard, we're being as proactive as we can, with the understanding that there are certain situations in order for public safety, in particular, that the court does need to function, but it's very minimal. And as far I'm on the Circuit Court Budget Committee for the Supreme Court as well, and we have authorized administrative leave for folks within the court system in order to avoid any impact on people who feel who are sick for one, but even folks who have been are in a situation they're uncomfortable, perhaps you know, the fellow worker. We're trying to come up with different methods in order to, and that's still a work in progress, but you know, staggering workforce or letting people work from home. But in either event, administrative leave in order so that no one is penalized, so they don't have to use sick leave. We don't have to have a doctor's note. We don't have to do those kind of things. So administrative leave just lets people or go home or be at home or work from home or do other things. Because, you know, with kids not being in school, you know, that is a further impact that limits people. So we don't want to in any way impede folks and we want people to be comfortable. I mean, this is a unique situation and a crisis. So we're trying to be proactive in that. But we also want to make sure that the court is operating to keep orders in place to protect people in situations and to make sure that the minimal kind of services that the court does provide can continue. So, you know, in some respects, each judge that's in each assignment will take a hard look at matters under their purview and have to make decisions, you know, based upon the particular cases, because it's, you know, it's hard just to, you know, lump everything together. Just like here in juvenile court, you know, it's really mandatory that we continue with protective custody hearings in order to ensure that we have kids that are in care and safe, and detention hearings as well when we have someone, you know, juvenile that's arrested on whatever offense, but most of these are very serious offenses, murder, and things of that sort. So we have to address that, and so that's kind of what we're doing. But we are minimizing those to the bare essentials that we have to, and I think that's across the board. But there are ongoing discussions with the presiding judge, with the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, and I expect that there'll be more administrative orders coming down here, if not today, in the very near future, as this is a fluid situation that, you know, we need to be cognizant of, and, you know, step by step. So it's, you know, I think the staff throughout has been very responsive, and things, I think people should, you know, feel assured that the court is operating, but within the framework of what we're dealing with.
That's great. So I want to, we're preparing in the last few minutes here, and I want a chance to do some wrap up, but I want to get one last question into you, Justin, and then I want everyone else to prepare on the gallery view. So we'll follow the gallery view to share any phone numbers or websites that people can use to find resources related to your respective areas. And I know some of you are aggregating that. Dr. Harris is doing a great job at that. So, so first I want to ask Justin this question, then I want to go around the gallery view and ask people to share any phone numbers or websites that they refer people to in order to access resources. Justin, this question has come up, it's been up for a while, so I wanted to make sure I got it in, is that some reports have suggested social distancing for weeks, while others have said up to 6 months. Realistically, what is the Department of Health thinking the timeline may be? You said a little bit about this at the beginning. Just want to clarify that again before we get off the call.
Sure, thank you for the question. It is a difficult one to provide a concrete answer to. However, this is a very fluid situation, and those measures are evaluated on a daily basis to determine how they need to shift. And so there's no way to predict how long the current recommendations will be in place or when additional recommendations could either be relaxed or enforced. So unfortunately, the situation really dictates our response at this point in time, and it's a very difficult one to foresee the future in.
So let's just start with you there, Justin. And if people want to stay up on this, where should they be going? Phone number, website, and/or social media handle? And
Sure.
to you, Alderwoman Hubbard, and go around.
So I'll start with the telephone number, and the city's hotline number is 657-1499. That'll get you to the City Department of Health call center. And then we also have a very robust web page where the current guidance and resources are posted, and I can provide that website as well. It's St. Louis, all one word, STLOUIS, and that's -mo.gov, and then it's /COVID-19. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll just follow gallery view. Alderwoman Hubbard, specific contacts for resources.
Specific contacts for resources, I'm definitely not going to repeat what the city, the health department just said, because I definitely would have mentioned them first. But echoing behind them is All Our Children. I can't speak enough about the work that Dr. Harris has done in setting up All Our Children. I'm sure he'll speak on it when you get down to him. But that's All Our Children. It's a link that we can share to you that is updated daily with resources. To speak about the need for this, I just got a call from the YMCA on Page while I've been on this call that they're going to be able to keep their childcare open, so you can use them as a resource. They're also going to be doing lunches. So we'll add them again to all the different places that'll be sending out information. Myself, you can always go to my social media pages, or you can call me on my cell phone at 314-393-1393. I have commitments from the radio stations that they'll be calling daily to see where they can put information out. So it's just going to be all hands on deck. So thank you again for this call, and I look forward to working with all of you all as we move forward in this pandemic.
Great. Dr. Thayman.
I'll just repeat the phone number and website for questions particularly related for our charter public school families. The website is mocharterschools.org, and we do have a resource page there, as well as the meal distribution map that is a combination of St. Louis Public Schools and the charter schools. If you have any questions or concerns, feel free to contact us at 314-776-3551.
Judge Omer.
Yes, our website is stlcitycircuitcourt.com. For information of any circuits throughout the state, it's courts.mo.gov. If you're concerned about your particular case, you can consult CaseNet or the circuit clerk's office, 622-4433. If you have a juvenile family court matter, you can call here at the juvenile court, 552-2028, and order protection matter regarding an adult or child abuse, 622-3788. If there's a probation matter, the city's probation office is 340-6999. Also, there's information on our court website concerning the steps we're taking for the virus, the protocols. And I would just say, I'm a budget person in part, and I've always said that bad budgets make for good decisions, and bad times can make for good things to happen, because I think we get out of our complacency and we have to face some very hard decisions, and these are decisions that sometimes I think we don't want to face, we're not prepared to face, but when we're forced to face them, we can pull together and good things can happen. So I'm very optimistic overall and encouraged by the panel that's been here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge Omer. Shout out to Mama Cat and the Pop Bangers over there over Shamim's shoulder. Alderwoman Spencer.
Thank you again for hosting this panel. I won't reiterate the city numbers, but I did want to mention that the Board of Aldermen is going down to a skeleton crew. And so please reach out to any of us directly. My cell phone number is 314-556-7379. We're here to identify gaps and try to make connections for folks. You can find us on social media. Just about all of us are available that way. But if you can't get a hold of your alderman, feel free to reach out to me directly. Thanks.
Great. Dr. Harris, Dr. Maureen Clancy May, Dr. Pericelli, and then Dr. Adams. Go in that order.
All right, cool. So the All Our Kids site is bit.ly / All Our Kids. And right now that site is loaded and is live with over, like I said, 100 sites for food location. The second phase that we're going to start to collect and add is a page for mental health resources. And so you can email me, Harris Terry at rsdmo.org, or you can follow me on Twitter. Just type in Dr._T Harris211. And I typically post a lot of things around the update. So follow the All Our Children page. We'll continue to add resources. And thank you guys for taking care of all our kids.
Hi, thank you all. This is Maureen Clancy May. Our DESE website is for the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education is www.dese.mo.gov. I've included my email address at maureen.clancy-may@dese.mo.gov. Dr. Harris, thank you so much. I think we're going to be in touch with one another to collaborate on some things. And appreciate all the work that everybody's doing for students and for children and families. Thank you.
Great, Bob.
Slade's Girls and Boys Club. Thank you for the opportunity. Before I give our contact information, I want to remind the group and everyone on here that the club is serious, that we will offer the building with, of course, restrictions and guidelines, but just keep that in mind. And Kara, you mentioned, resources, so keep us in mind as you're hearing from folks in the community. So our website is gsgbcstl.org. Our phone number at the club, 314-772-5661. Lastly, there is a Facebook page that is a community. It's a social resource group. I have been posting some things on it. It really seems to be created by concerned citizens. So if anyone is interested, of course, can't guarantee the accuracy here, right? But it's the Facebook page is called St. Louis COVID-19 Social Resource Group.
Thank you. Dr. Adams.
First of all, again, like everyone else, I want to say thank you very much, Deaconess Foundation, Bridget and Starsky, for doing this. I think it's been a wonderful opportunity to make sure that families and people have information, and we want to continue to do that. So these are contact numbers. I have several of them, so if you take your time to get them out. www.slps.org/meals, and it's the same numbers on the front, www.slps.org/keep-on-learning if you want to get packets. For additional resources that are going to be out, www.slps.org/resources. So the first part is the same, /meals/keep-on-learning/resources. The district office will be open next week and taking calls, and that number is 345-2130. My direct cell number is 541-1165. If you want to email me, it's supt@slps.org. And lastly, it is our intent to have all school numbers answered tomorrow and the rest of the week. We plan on having the calls forwarded to persons who will be able to answer school-specific questions for that particular school. So if you call a metro school and you have a question to ask, someone will be answering a call for metro or for whatever one of the schools. So that's the intent, and that will be put out today on our www.slps.org resource number. So again, thank you very much, gentlemen, for doing this, and thank you for engaging the community and getting answers.
Thank you all very much. Bridget, in closing words, I'll share some commitments around communication after you do.
All I would say is I think that this was extremely helpful, and I cannot express enough thanks to all of you who are doing everything every day to make life better for children in these very difficult times. I would hope that we could have similar calls around other issues affecting children. We focused a lot on education today, but looking at things like daycare issues, looking at things like what are we going to do this summer with kids, those mental health needs for kids, a little bit more in depth on that. So hopefully we will have other calls like this, and I can't thank Starsky and his team enough for making this all possible. So thank you very much. Stay healthy, stay distant, wash your hands.
That's it. Thank you, Bridget. Thanks everyone for being on the call. Thank you for those who persisted, who are now on YouTube because the other platforms were not there. Thank you for the leadership of the leaders of the Board of Aldermen, Kara, Lewis, Shamim, for having the thought, bringing these speakers together and allowing us to help innovate on what democracy looks like in partnership with government and philanthropy to make it accessible to people. I want to very specifically make these commitments and invite people to think about, to look for these. Bridget already talked about these topics that we know we need to get to, so we'll seek to pull together resources around early childhood, summer learning, and mental health. But we'll also share all of the contacts that you have heard over social media channels, over the Deaconess and Incarnate Word social media platforms, so that folks can have access to these. We'll also, of course, share the link to the YouTube with everyone widely and encourage you to share it even more widely. It's currently on the Deaconess page and on the Deaconess Facebook page or my Facebook page, but we'll keep getting that out to people. But the other thing I just want to kind of lift up and name the baddest organizers that I know. Their names are David Nerett Flores and Michael Schultz. They happen to work for Deaconess Foundation. They've been behind the scenes trying to make all of this work. They're community organizers at heart, and their technology juices have come out to make this work. And so I just want to send shouts out to them with great appreciation for following my last minute agreement earlier this week to make this possible, and invite all of you to be thoughtful about ways that we can continue to help our partners and our friends. So thank you all very much for your time, for your care. We look forward to meeting you on the internet even more in the days that are coming. And I close as Bridget closed. Wash your hands.